When the subject of the sergeant's revolt came up, it was remembered that the principal ringleaders were Salty Harris and Mike Raney. Both men belonged to 3rd Platoon. Harris served as the platoon sergeant, while Raney was a squad leader. Nearly all of the non-commissioned officers took part, with the exception of Evans and Murray Roberts, who refused to sign. Each man wrote out his own statement by hand. The wording was essentially the same on every page and read, "In effect, I hereby turn in my stripes." That phrase was clearly remembered. Each man declared that he no longer wished to serve as a non-commissioned officer in Easy Company. Though the wording was consistent, every sheet was written in the handwriting of the man who signed it. The stack of papers was taken to the orderly room and placed in the in-basket for Sobel. Later that same evening, quite late in fact, Mike Raney retrieved the papers. He explained that the men had met again and decided they did not want the statements left in the in-basket after all. He took the papers with him. It was not entirely certain where they went after that, but they did not end up in Sobel's hands. It was believed that they were taken instead to Strayer at Battalion, who soon brought Colonel Sink down to address the situation. Sink gathered all of the non-commissioned officers together and delivered a fierce lecture. He told them bluntly that what they had done amounted to mutiny. If such an action had occurred in a combat situation, he said, every one of them could have been shot. Even under the present circumstances, he had the authority to put them all in the guardhouse for a long time. He was furious. Yet only a few weeks later, Sobel was gone. What likely saved the men, as many of them believed, was that the overwhelming majority of the company's non-commissioned officers had participated. There was no single clear reason given for Sobel's transfer. His unfair treatment of Moore was certainly a major contributing factor, and his handling of Winters probably played a role as well. Another important element was the simple fact that the men believed they might soon enter combat. Some felt that if they had gone into battle under Sobel's command, the situation might have ended violently. At the time, Bill Guarnere believed he might have killed Sobel himself, though he later admitted he was not certain he truly would have carried that thought through. The essential point was that the men did not want to enter combat with him as their leader. Sobel never attempted to bring the men together to discuss the problem or to talk through the tension within the company. Such an action would have been completely out of character for him. Ironically, the outcome may have saved his life. He eventually ended up assigned to training duties at parachute school, work that many believed he was well suited for. The last time one of the men recalled seeing Sobel was in March of 1945 in Mourmelon, France. The division was assembled in formation for a unit citation ceremony. Standing in the front rank of one of the columns, 2nd Lieutenant Carwood Lipton had Winters directly in front of him. At that moment, Sobel marched smartly out in front of Winters, came to attention, saluted him, and asked a question. Winters answered. Sobel saluted again, executed an about-face, and marched back to the supply company or unit he was then assigned to. The observer looked at Winters and saw the unmistakable expression on his face, as Sobel had been required to salute him. The look of triumph in Winters' expression was something that was never forgotten. Later discussion touched on the bitterness that existed within Sobel's family regarding how he was viewed by the company. Bill Guarnere had spoken with Sobel's sister during a reunion in Chicago. He had called her several times and explained who he was and described the experiences of Easy Company. During those conversations, she mentioned that Sobel had once attempted to take his own life and was then living in a home. When Sobel died in 1987, Guarnere called his sister again. She explained that Sobel had died alone. He had been divorced, and his final years had been extremely difficult. Despite everything, there remained one point that could not be ignored. Rod Stroll had once remarked that Sobel had made Easy Company. In a certain sense, that statement was true. Sobel had pushed the men relentlessly and demanded everything he could from them. The company had started out much like any other company in the 506th, composed of men very similar to those found throughout the regiment. Yet they ultimately became something somewhat different from the others. In many ways, they also developed in a manner Sobel himself had never intended. The men had bonded together partly as a means of protecting themselves from him. His leadership style forced them into unity, and his reputation became widely known not only among the men but among officers in other companies as well. When the conversation turned to the officers who later commanded the company, Thomas Meehan was described as a quiet and pleasant man, completely different from Sobel. He had come into the company from outside the unit, though exactly where from was not clearly remembered. In retrospect, it seemed like a wise decision on Sink's part not to promote someone directly from within one of the platoons. Whether Meehan would have proven to be a strong combat officer was uncertain. He did not have the forceful presence of someone like Winters or Spears. Instead, he was soft-spoken and mild in manner. He was from Philadelphia. The men had very little time to get to know him before he was gone, and that short period made it difficult to form a firm opinion about his leadership. However, when it came to the D-Day briefing before they took off, Meehan performed extremely well.